Good morning everyone and welcome back to another episode of Barham Engines. Now before we get going in the workshop guys, please if you haven't done so already, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell and you'll be notified whenever we put up a video. Right guys, we finally got my mate Paul Johnson's Mark III Focus RS block and bits and bobs on a bench and ready to start machining and dummy building, etc. I'm quite excited about this because this is going to be decent power. Paul's doing all the right things. Obviously this one here, the story, it done the crank. This engine has been built before, whether it was from Mountune or it's got all the Mountune bits. So we've got the stud and nut kit down on the mains. It looks like it's been line honed, but obviously I'm going to check them housings, but it did do a crank. It did the big ends, and you can see there two of the rods are no good at all. They've got very, very hot. So Paul, we obviously got a new set of Bridgeway rods come in, I-beam, so low weight. We've got a new crankshaft that Paul has supplied, brand new, genuine. He has also supplied this brace, which goes in to the top. You sort of bash it down flush with the top of the block, and that sort of strengthens up and makes it in effect sort of closed deck really. The only thing is with that, I did say to Paul, is that may close our bores up, which means we may have to bore this thing. If that is the case, once we've put that in, once we've fitted this brace, big money by the way, this thing, once we've fitted that, we may have to bore it and get a new set of pistons, which is not a problem. These are looking distinctly sort of second hand anyway, although they would do the job. They measure up absolutely fine. The ring lands are perfect. Yeah, and once we've done that, we'll obviously, when we've fitted that, we're going to have to face the block, so we're going to have to do a dummy build using the competition bearings, etc., and get our piston heights right once we know the thickness of the head gasket. The clutch down here, Paul sent this in. Obviously we're going to have to balance that new crank and do the whole assembly. This is a 6-paddle clutch, which is fairly new, to be honest with you. The clutch cover and the clutch plate all look really good. Obviously, because it's a paddle, it has slightly cooked the flywheel, so we're going to have to face that. And we know with a step flywheel, we have to remove the dowels, and whatever we take off that face needs to be took off that face. So that's all we're going to do there, and then we're going to balance the whole assembly. Right, so first of all, what we're going to do is measure these bores as they are. Now, I've said to you that it's been bored, so it's now at 88mm, 87.5 standard. So what we've done is we've set the bore gauge to dead on zero, 88mm, and we'll see what these bores are. So the zero is size, so as you can see, we're sort of half a thou to a thou big on there. Which, to be honest with you, I normally go, especially on these Wasner pistons, I normally go about half a thou big anyway. So that is not a bad thing. And obviously, with the application, that one's slightly over. But that's probably on the bigger side there, which is not ideal. But a half a thou to a thou extra clearance for the application is no bad thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to drive that support plate in now, and we'll see what it measures then, see if it closes up or ovals the bore. So guys, thumbnail and title time. So for all our normal subscribers or people that haven't just joined the channel, you will know by our previous videos that we had an attempted break-in. Now, that attempted break-in resulted in the one person that tried to get in not being able to get in. He then turned and vandalised our new van. So what has happened now? What is happening next? We have been obviously in touch with the police. They got back to us eventually, give us a crime number. We've been in touch with our insurance company via obviously the company, and they wanted the crime number. They also wanted any sort of evidence that we had, so we had to fill out a form, etc., send that off to them. They then wanted us to go and get an estimate on the van and on the damage. So in the meantime, we've been in touch with the police, obviously. The police, because there was no one on the scene, I would say, although it's not a threat or anything like that, quite shockingly, because there was no one on the scene when we obviously found out, it was about a day or so later, we then had to get in touch via another phone number to the local police, who then said, you're wasting your time on here, you'll be on here for ages, you need to get in on the internet, on our website, and fill out a form there, which I did. Literally 2 weeks later, they got back to us via phone. He sort of took some details and said they'll send us an email, which they did do, which will have the crime number on, etc. Then they want us to go and give them as much detail as possible. Now, fortunately, the suspect did get arrested down the road. He actually broke into next door, got in next door, wondered about, didn't do anything, didn't take anything, apparently, but he still got arrested down in the town. So they know who he is. So at this point now, they're trying to link him with, obviously, the criminal damage that they've done on our van. We've still got the bits of evidence, so we've still got his watch here, which obviously we've got to fill this form out, tell them that we've got that. Whether they'll want it, who knows. Obviously, we've had to send them the footage from the camera, which we've got, and obviously photos of things like the door, which has still got the footprints on, etc. Now, over to the van. So it just so happens, guys, that we had the old Citroen van, which we bought. It was a V-Reg, so what's that? 99, whatever it is. We had that van from brand new, and we only got rid of it last year because it failed the MOT on welding, etc. And we bought this lovely new Ford van, this little Connect van. Just so happens we never had anything like this while we had the old Citroen van. It's typical. But as soon as we get this, you can see the damage here, the extent of the damage. Now, on first look, you think, all right, it's a dent in the door, but you can see there it's obviously on both creases, top and bottom, so alarm bells start ringing with me, and I think that's going to be tricky to get that line back as it was. Anyway, we took the van for an estimate. He's had a look at it, and obviously with his professional eye, you've obviously got this damage here, which has kinked the door up to the door handle. But if you look down the back door, below the back door handle, it looks like he's had another dig at it. You see there? It may be, they said it may be, it's not 100%, it may be a pressing from the original panel, from the door handle, I don't know, but it could well be to do with the guy. Anyway, they've got to repair that door, which means obviously we've got to have new signs on the side of it. And obviously this isn't repairable. They said, you can see right down here where it's gone all the way down. He said that's a new door. So I was thinking this is going to be 500-600 quid's worth of work. I don't know, even if it's £1,000, it's ridiculous. But they got back to us with an estimate, guys, and this is nearly £2,800 to fix. Yeah, I know it's ridiculous, but I suppose it's just the price of modern panels, etc. I don't know. But yeah, you can imagine that how much that is going to put our premium up next year for our company insurance. Really, really frustrating. And my feeling is, this is maybe not what's going to happen, but my feeling is they've got the guy, they're going to link him to this. The guy's going to have no money whatsoever. He's going to get a slap on the wrist. I don't know. It's just so frustrating. Even when they catch him red-handed, they're on camera and all this. I might be wrong. They might do something about it, but my feeling is nothing's going to get done about this. All right, this is going through our insurance, but it's going to put our premiums up, let's face it. So yeah, really, really frustrating, guys. It's really upsetting, but it's one of those things where I'm afraid you may have to just put it behind you, deal with the up in the premium next year. It's out of our hands. Just seems to be the way of the world now, guys. You get anything nice, and some little scrote comes along and ruins it for you. But there we go. Just have to deal with it. Onwards and upwards, as they say. Okay, so as you can see, we've fitted the brace in the top now. Now, it does say you've got to do a little bit of fettling with this, but obviously it needs to go in sort of consistently snug, really. So we've fitted it, and now we're going to measure the bores. So you can see this bore here is, we're running about 1 thou over the top of the recommended running clearance, which is not any bad thing. Doesn't seem to have distorted that one. This one here, thou again. Yeah, not too bad. This one here, slightly tighter. Yeah, so he's closed up there about half a thou, so that's about half a thou less than what they recommend. On the thrust side, he's down to about 2. And as you go further down, so yeah, that brace has distorted the block slightly at the top. Now, I spoke to Paul about this, and I've said, if we go by our experience with the Mark IIs, which is the 5-cylinder block, from our experience, we've had the Mark IIs in, where obviously they are an open deck block, the same as these. They can distort all kinds of shapes. We've deglazed them, given back to the customer. Obviously, we are not building them, and they don't seem to give any oil burning or usage issues. So I've said to him, it's one of those where it may work if you re-ring these pistons, it may not. But if you're going to leave the choice up to us, obviously we're going to be assembling the short motor here. So there's only one way to go, and that's new pistons. Now, this has been bored from 87.5 to 88, so it's half mil oversize. The only pistons that we can get that do 88.5 is JE or Wasner. So we have ordered some 88.5 mil JE pistons. So yeah, everything is going to be pretty much new in this. We're going to bore that another half mil, go for an 89 mil diameter gasket by 1.3. So yeah, this engine apparently Paul wants over sort of 500 horsepower. Let's crack on and get it built for him. Right guys, before we go any further with the Focus RS Mark III, I just want to show you this. So we have got the block over here on the hone, and that is for the Cosworth Mercedes, the E190. So we've just rebored it. We've gone plus 40 thou, so 1 millimeter. And basically the reason I'm putting this in a video is just to show, once again, I know I've showed it in other videos, but why it's so important to measure the piston and don't just go off the recommended clearance to bore and hone and just assume that all the clearance is going to be fine in comparison with the piston. So this is what I've found. Here is the piston, a good quality piston from Marla. Standard bore is 95.5. So this piston is 96.5. Okay, so if we have a look on the crown, it says on there 96.46. and SP 0.04 is the running clearance. So what you do there, what they mean, the SP is the actual running clearance, and that is the running clearance between the cylinder wall and the piston. So obviously in my last video I showed you that the piston was tapered, and you sort of measure about 10 mil up in about the first inch of that area, and that is the widest part of this piston. Okay, so 96.5. Now that piston, going by these measurements, should measure 96.46. So if we take that into imperial, so 96.46, if we divide by 25.4, that gives us the imperial. So that piston down there should be measuring 3.7976. Okay, so with the extra running clearance, that makes it up to 96.5. So if we go 96.5 divided by 25.4, that is your running clearance. So it's giving about 1 thou and 3/4 running clearance. We can go up to 2 thou running clearance, no problems. Right, so if we just double check the measurement of that piston where you should measure, this is a calibrated mic because I've just calibrated it just to make sure. You can see there, you can see where I'm measuring it, guys, about 10 mil up from the bottom of the skirt, and that is measuring 3.799 exactly. Now if you have a look at that, look, 3.799 is what the thing is meant to be bored to. So what I'm saying is, if we had just bored this bore to 96.5 and tried to put those pistons in, if they go in at all, it's almost certainly going to seize up. So that is why, guys, we always ask for a piston before we finish hone. So what we want to be doing now is be giving this basically about getting on 2 thou extra than what it says you should be giving it, because that's what the piston measures. So I've double checked measuring all the other pistons. That is what we've got. But yeah, very, very important to have the piston so we can measure the skirt and make sure the running clearance is going to be correct. This, unfortunately, is where a lot of horror stories come in from other piston brands, or certain piston brands where people get, a piston gets a bad name and they say, oh, you don't want to use them, they seize up on the skirt. 9 times out of 10, I'd say even more than that, it's usually because you don't give them the right running clearance. Acrylite, perfect example. On a standard piston for a Cosworth, say, you'd be getting 2.5 thou running clearance. On an acrylite, they run up to sort of 4.5 thou. So if you put an acrylite in a standard bore, or a bore that's bored for a Marla piston, for example, it will go in there, it will run, but as soon as you start chucking any heat through that, it's going to seize up. It's not the piston's fault, it's the machinist's fault. So yeah, lesson to be learnt, guys. Do not assume that that running clearance is going to be what it should be. Well, guys, from us here at Bareham Engines and The Dent, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Cheers, guys.